Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. We get started, as we do each and every week, by introducing my two fantastic co-hosts, Ruben Bressler.
Hello.
And Aaron Campbell. And we kick it off with our first pick. And our first pick this week is the number one thing going on in Magic. And the sky is falling, as it always does. They've changed Magic Online prizes. Oh my god, it's so terrible. The world is ending. No one knows what to do with themselves. The Magic Online card shops are just like, I've got collections just like flowing like rain down my body. I don't know what to do with all these cards people are selling me. Yes, Ruben, it's happening. And it's not
with this line of discussion.
Look, I can't help what's going on in the world. I'm just telling you, there's I've just not seen this many collections being sold so much. Oh my god, they came up with Magic Online Fun Bucks, and that's that is what that is.
Yeah, Disney dollars.
Yeah, they came back with the Super Fun Bucks and stuff, and yeah. So as a result, they a lot of people kind of flipped out, and
Rightfully so.
yeah, as I can expect them to do so. And so how do you guys feel about these new changes to the payouts and what they're doing and yada yada?
Yeah, I'm not super happy about it. I mean, I have no personal stake in MTGO, so I don't personally care about it. But Magic the Gathering Online Digital Objects has been around for a decade, and it's a lot of people's livelihood still, and it used to be even more people's livelihood. And a bunch of switches over the last 2-3 years. The switch to version 4, and this most recent switch to Disney dollar equivalents, and phantom points and different size payouts. It all is just like, it just seems like they keep misstepping by accident, and it's really unfortunate because Magic the Gathering is a great game. Magic the Gathering Online is not a great game, and it's really disappointing because it could be great. It's already good, but it's the only game in town, so you can't really do anything else about it. It's I'm just sad.
It's just pretty frustrating. We actually hit my 1-year anniversary of stop playing Magic Online because it was the 1-year anniversary of them going to version 4, because I love those guys to death. I know a ton of people who work on it, and I can't live with the experience. I can't live with how it feels to use the thing and like to use that program and to have it be as buggy and as kind of awkward as it is. And there's just so many there's just so many different things I could do. I've got Steam, and I've got like 100 games that are all awesome.
Yeah,
I can play a million different things.
That's the thing, is that Magic the Gathering can compete with other card games. Magic the Gathering Online has to compete with the entirety of the internet. So not just Hearthstone, but also Reddit and Facebook and cat pictures, which is Reddit. But you get my point. It's just, there's so much to, there's BuzzFeed and HuffPost and Agario and so many other things that you could be doing on the internet that Magic the Gathering Online has this really awkward position where they should be better than they are, and it's just really unfortunate.
Aaron, how do you feel about it?
I can't really relate to people who try to squeeze every drop of EV out of everything they do. I'm not saying they're wrong for feeling that way, but I am, as I've said many times, I am not good at the game. If we're saying that we play Magic solely because we get something out of it, I've actually lost a lot of money playing Magic. I've flown out to 3 events this year so far, $400 a pop just for the airline, not to mention accommodations and things like that, and I've made none of that back. But I've had a lot of fun meeting listeners and seeing old friends and getting practice, and that's enough for me. If we're going by the metric of what are you getting out of this and wanting to get every penny of your investment back, then I'm screwed. And I feel that way with Magic Online too. It's like, especially since I've started getting into Legacy, I can't play Legacy around here. We have one Legacy event that fires on a Wednesday, which I'm here willingly and lovingly, of course.
Aww. We're preventing you from your fun.
But I'm just saying, it's like, for me to get that practice, I have to play on Magic Online. I have nobody I can play with to get that practice in. So, if that's what I have to do to get better at the game, to learn my deck, I'm fine with that. I'm getting things out of it that are not tickets, that are not money, because I don't play for those reasons. If I were somebody who was good at the game and I felt like I was able to win and I was having to pay more to win more, I could see where they're coming from. But for me personally, I get enough just being able to have dailies whenever I want to play them and having a two-person queue whenever I want to play them. So it meets my needs for the kind of player that I am.
Sure.
I don't go into it with these expectations of I'm going to get rich off Moto. I'm not good enough to do that. There are people who are, and God bless them. But, I have a day job. It's just a fun thing for me. It's a way to practice, and it's fine for someone like me.
I mean, I would say that the type of person who needs to get maximum EV is not the person who's saying I need to get rich off of it. It's the person that say I need to get as much value as I can all the time. Example. I really like to eat at Panera Bread. Panera Bread's like my jam. And I'll get a drink, and I will drink, a quarter inch maybe of the plastic cup. And I do not leave that restaurant until I go back and get my final. Oh, absolutely, because you do not leave value on the table.
How are you not that guy? Of course you do that.
See, it's value that you are leaving when you decide to just get up and leave the restaurant. Well, why don't you get that last quarter inch of value? It's right there for you. It's waiting for you to take. They're giving it to you.
The lemonade's not going to drink itself, Aaron.
But see, I used to fill up the lemonade, and then I would decide I wasn't thirsty anymore, and then I've wasted the lemonade.
Right, but at least you had it in case you wanted it.
But if you're not actually using it...
I mean, that's kind of different, though. What I'm saying, you squeezed all the value out of it.
But you don't know that you're not going to use it. Let's bring it away from lemonade. All right, we're going to go back to Magic Online. When I see a person that I respect and like, or is a friend of mine, or is even just an acquaintance of a friend or something like that, and I see them waste potential, I'm sort of not sad, not disappointed, but not happy. Like, I'm sort of, my general mood goes down a little bit. And that's what happens when I look at Magic Online. It's not my friend, it's friends of friends. It's an acquaintance that I say hi to every time the online cube comes up. Right? When I can use my phantom points. Like, that's my relationship with Magic Online. And to see it sort of flounder and coast I'm not happy about it. Now, I'm one to talk. I'm sort of just coasting. But this isn't about me, all right?
Hey, this isn't about me.
This isn't about me. We'll talk about my personal issues later. But Magic Online has great potential. It's the world's most popular trading card game in an online form, and it's just not all that it could be.
It is not.
Sure.
And anyway, so these changes happened. Like, I saw something that John Butler, the guy who wrote the really sort of the landmark coverage article about how coverage should be done differently, he was talking about how what happens is they change something, everyone flips out, the market goes down, and then the market goes right back up after everybody kind of gets over it. And so, like, right now, at least what I've been seeing is, like, the market's down something like 5% or whatever all across the board, and that's fine, but it's not 100%. It's not even near 25%. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking just like a blip. So if a whole bunch of people are deciding to get out of the game, well, like, Magic Online makes a whole bunch of money, so there's a whole lot of people out there who just don't care. And if this is what's needed to kind of fix the problem, which kind of all began, at least best I can tell, when they changed the redemption fee from $5 to $25 for a set, because a lot of people were kind of mining Magic Online to get the paper cards, and so because they raised the redemption fee at such a high price, you can no longer really do that profitably. This is like what they got to do. I'm not an economist, so all I can do is kind of read all these different takes on it and all these different, like, well, it's bad EV, well, it's not that bad EV, well, if you're a great Magic player, you're not losing that much. I don't know. I just feel like it's something that everyone was so alarmed about. We had to talk about it. So
I will say, I did see that there were streamers that said that it was potentially good for them because they could just sort of kind of not go infinite, but they could just keep streaming.
Yeah,
where it
and that's
allows
something
them,
that's nice.
Yeah, especially because the quality of Magic Online has either caused people to stop streaming or just cut back entirely. So maybe this will get the streamers back in the game, which might make the game look good and might kind of have a positive, a feedback effect.
I love how streamers are really affecting games these days. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Like everyone being their own.
They're the biggest advertising for sure.
Yeah.
And the numbers on the play points, which this is what we're talking about. I don't know if we spelled it out specifically, but you should go read the MTGO article about the changes that are coming in August, I believe, or have they already taken effect? They're coming in
August 12th, as I understand it, was what I
and
recall.
basically, they're introducing a new thing called play points, which is somewhere in between Phantom points and event tickets, which event tickets translate to actual dollars, and Phantom points disappear when the online cube goes away, and can be used for other things, I think, but I don't know how the Magic Online economy works. Anyway, you can enter events with either tickets or play points, and play points are some fraction of a percentage of a ticket, and they figured out the math of some kind or another. But what it really does is it helps you immediately get back in the queue. So that is one nice thing about the play points, is that it's easy to immediately just keep playing and playing and playing and playing. A lot simpler without having to reload event tickets, for example. And so that's one thing that's nice, but come on, you don't need 3 different types of currency in your program to play one game. I think that this is a misallocation of time to focus on this facet of Magic Online. But then again, I don't know, because I'm not a moto scientist. So.
Well, neither am I, but I know I heard enough about the fact that you're playing in events and you're losing money because the pack values are so low that you can't get what you put into it out, even if you won the queue or whatever. Like, and that is the best I can tell why they're making a lot of these changes, because the economy is so bad. They're like, we got to do something to kind of sort of price fix, or whatever you want to call it, these packs and these queues and these events or whatever. And you know, lots of people are crunching the numbers. There's plenty of spreadsheets out there and graphics telling you how good and how bad this is. I mean, feel free to judge for yourself, of course, but like, you know, Magic Online to me is just kind of alien, and that's by my own volition. I left it voluntarily, and I was like, you know what? At some point, I will not hear people being upset with it and being angry at having to do X, or angry at this bug happening or that bug happening. And when that stops, I'll join back in.
Yeah. In the end, I think that I am happy that they're attempting. Like, at least they're trying, right?
That's what.
But I don't think that this is like not a fix. But it's an attempt, which I respect, and I'm happy that they're giving it a shot. You know.
Yeah, that's what Hoagland said, and I knew, because even he was like, at least they're doing something, and for him to sort of come out in like a mild defense of this was like, ooh, like, because he's been one of their loudest critics, so it was very surprising.
Yeah. I mean, he was bashing them earlier today. I mean, so yeah, it's fine. Totally.
Love him, but just saying.
Right. I mean, well, I got to troll him earlier. You know, he was talking like he made like X top 8s or whatever, and I just went to Amazon, found some steak knives, copied the link, told him I needed his shipping address, you know, because I got something for him. Coffee's for closers, you know what I'm saying? And anyway, we're going to move on to Desperate Ravings. Desperate Ravings is something that just kind of happened in the community that had a lot of people talking. We're talking about a Reddit post that is titled "Can we address this waste?" And someone posted an image of all of the ad cards that they got from their deck, and I think some of them are not, like, some of them are pure ads, where there's ads on both types, and the other half they're showing off the tokens, which have ads on one side and a token on the other. And is that a good thing and is that a bad thing? And, you know, the top post from the Reddit that got 745 upvotes is, you know, basically our options are tokens and lots of ad cards, or no tokens at all. And, you know, the inserts that are just ads help pay for the fact that the tokens show up as often as they do. And, you know, some other points that were being made was, you know, if you even know what the Magic subreddit is, particularly whether or not you're a part of it, whether or not you read any threads, we are so small of a Magic percentage in terms of like the populace of who plays Magic. They will never ever know my name. They will never have, you know, even when after I'm gone, it's like, who knows what this Evan Irwin dude was and what he did, because we're just in the weird percentage of a percentage who care so much about Magic that we're into it every day, we're talking about it all the time, we're keeping track of everything, versus the people who are like, well, oh cool, there's a new Magic set, and I'll buy a booster of it, and maybe I'll add it to my weird, funky deck that I have at home of elves and stuff, and I hope I get some green cards. And that is the only way they learn that Gideon Jura is a person and Jace Beleren is a planeswalker. That's the only way. And if they get a weird card like a planeswalker, they look up how to play it, and then once they look up how to play it, they don't care anymore, and they move on with their casual only lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, I feel like you can't really deny the fact that tokens and packs are good. Adding tokens to Magic was awesome, and B, if this is what it takes, and this is reaching an audience that is not us, it's not for us, then it's not that bad.
Sure.
Prove it.
I mean, advertising is a necessary evil. People go to college to major in advertising to be able to sell people things for a living. The Geico cavemen are more famous than any of us will ever be. So it's a necessary evil, and it makes sense. You don't want to put advertising on the wrapper. You want to have the wrapper of your product be just your product.
Sure.
You can put a little insert in the booster box that has a little piece of paper on it. You can put little inserts in the packs, and they're pretty unobtrusive, right? Like, we're going to booster draft, and we're just going to throw it in the middle of the table with our basic land. That's us.
Right.
But most people are going to very carefully look through all their cards and look at the art and read all the flavor texts and see who did the art and read every word and do everything, and then they're going to get to the insert and be like, oh, there's a Magic the Gathering Pro Tour that airs on this date? Weird. And if they can quantify how many people read that, then clearly it's worth it. The main issue, obviously, is that it's wasteful. One out of every 15 cards is getting thrown away more often than not, and that's advertising. When you get handed a flyer from some guy at your grocery store, they're like, "Here, you throw this away." is basically what they're saying, and they have a stack of those that they hand to different people to throw away. But 2 out of every 50 or whatever are going to be like, oh, there's a whatever happening, I might take a look at that. And it's a bit of hit or miss. There's not an exact science to advertising. And to get that audience you're talking about, the kitchen table players, the players that buy a pack and then go home, they don't know what the Pro Tour is, they don't know what the Grand Prix is, they don't know what Magic Mike's is, get out of here with that. Then they're gonna, that's the best way to reach them. So, on the one hand, I think it's fine. I think that having advertising is good. But I don't buy that they can't put tokens in every pack. That's the part.
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. Absolutely they could. Now, some of it is just good old-fashioned raw marketing, because we have things at such a percentage. I don't think they care. I mean, I don't know. I'm obviously trying to sort of speak for them, and I have no idea what their goals are, what their sort of penetration rate is for people seeing an ad and reading the ad and caring about the ad. But other people were kind of saying like, hey, they should give away Magic Online codes or whatever on these things, and I'm like, you know the logistics of what that would entail to create millions of codes that have to work properly across all these different packs and have to be printed separately in some fashion. It would change the entire printing process of the entire game at that point. That's a big deal. I mean, not even talking about like economic implications for Magic Online. Like, that would just be this huge thing. And other people are like, look, I don't like them, but I use them as card separators. I use them as bookmarks. Like, all sorts of people saying, like, a card's a card and it can be used to scrape up something off the floor for all they care. But like, it's not 100% useless, but it can be seen as wasteful. But again, I think we kind of view it through a weird lens. Aaron, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think, to be fair, I admit I didn't read this thread initially because I don't really read it, but I'm looking at it now, and from what I understand, that's what's left over after a case.
Oh,
so,
I see.
Yeah, he opened a case to get that many.
Gotcha.
To be fair, I think the average Magic player is just not buying and opening cases. Like, I know people who buy boxes.
Sure.
But a case is what, 6 boxes?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, this is an unusual occurrence.
That's a lot.
So I think this is something that certainly looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I question just the statistic or what we're really looking at. With that said, though, I'm really confused about something. So somebody had posted a link to Maro's Tumblr where somebody asked him, why can't every pack have a token in it? And he says something I don't really understand. And Evan, you're in the thick of things in the business. Maybe you can explain this to me. So he's basically saying the cards exist in the booster packs because marketing pays for them.
Mm-hmm.
Who's marketing paying? Aren't they all under the Wizards umbrella? Like who?
They are, but it allows them to use part of the marketing budget to produce those cards, and it gives R&D one side of that marketing product on a certain percentage of them. So marketing can say, we're making these advertisements and we're giving away this amount to R&D to let them use them as tokens, but the rest is all marketing. So it's in the same company, but there's not the same budgets for every single department. And as a result, the marketing budget, let's just say is, $100,000 or whatever. And they say, well, we're going to spend, 50 of it making these tokens, and R&D is going to spend 10 of theirs because they are getting this amount of tokens or whatever. I don't know if that's the setup. I'm just coming up with an idea, with like sort of a reasoning I can see corporate wise that they would say marketing is paying for this, even though Wizards of the Coast is paying for this. Of course they are.
Yeah.
But you have to somehow slice and dice departments and what they have and what they're responsible for in some fashion. So that's my take on it. I don't know if that's the actual reason.
As you become a bigger company, like what Wizards is, there's a lot of left hand and right hand not really knowing what each other are doing going on, and this is later in this thread. Basically, the inserts came first. Them being tokens were something later. So this is sort of the advertising department throwing research and development a bone. Is basically what they're saying.
That's what it sounds
they were
like.
Hey, we had this cool idea, but we'll let you have like a fourth of the space because people want tokens.
So hold on a second. Someone was tweeting at us that we are not showing up on Twitch. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to verify that right now. But if that is a truism, we'll restart the stream. Obviously, I upgraded our Twitch stuff here, and that's a thing.
I'm seeing us on Twitch.
I don't know what's going on with
I
see us. We're on that right now. We're good. We're good. I'm sorry.
Weird.
So yeah, I mean, again,
Yeah, you're good.
There's ways that you can slice up a budget in a company that is that size, and some of it's necessary. And if again, I don't know if that's true, but if that's what it takes to get tokens, I sure do like tokens.
Well,
Also, there's a.
Go ahead. Aaron.
Sorry. I was just going to say that there's the top thing on the Magic TCG Reddit right now is called I wanted to see if I could use the Origins ad cards for something cool. And they created little planeswalker cards for the new flip planeswalkers that are pretty cool designs. And so, with a little creativity, the spikes and the tournament players can also use these cards if in a pinch, if they're trying to find something to do with them. They aren't completely useless just for scooping up dust off the table.
And I thought of something too, and maybe this is just me being sassy, but one of my major pet peeves as a player is people who don't bring tokens. And I can understand this. So, like, even if you don't have the proper token, I would be fine with people using these ad cards. Like, but I would rather see
I do that all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Right, I would rather see that than the person who's like, I'm going to use this penny and it's a beast token. No, go use an ad card. Like, go.
And tails means it's tapped. Like,
Yeah, no.
Oh, God,
So
I hate that.
That's a good use for it too. Like if you're not the type to have or let's say you're playing something with a really obscure token. Like let's say you're playing with Kiora and you don't have any Krakens. Use an ad token. Like I would rather see that. Like that can be a productive use of cards.
Yeah. I've still yet to see a copy of the 4/4 that Nissa makes.
I've seen that.
Shia,
Yeah.
whatever.
I've seen it. Well, I opened a couple boxes for SCG's YouTube channel or whatever, and I got some. And there were some on stream too this past weekend.
I've only done like 3 or 4 drafts thus far, but I've used face down Thopters or whatever, or ad tokens to make a 4/4 when we had it in one of the drafts. So it's not that they can't be used. It's that most people want to have pretty things, and after you see the advertisement, even the people that this is targeted at,
Sure.
once they read the ad, then they throw it away. It's not like they're gonna put it in their pocket and save it and bring it home and say, "Look, Mom and Dad, the Pro Tour is a thing."
Right.
They're not doing that.
I mean,
they're internalizing the information and then still throwing it away.
I can't remember where I exactly read it, but I read it on the internet, so that means it's true.
Story checks out.
Yeah, tokens are, as I understand it, tokens are as rare as the card that produces them. So I don't know if that's true. I haven't cared enough to look, honestly, because when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I never see this token, or why I very seldom see an emblem, because they're mythic tokens. They're much more rare than a Thopter, which all sorts of common cards make them. So yeah, I opened some, but that's because I opened like 3 boxes and I got like maybe 2 or 3 of them or whatever it was. So that to me made sense at least.
Okay.
So
I buy it.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's move on here, and we're going to talk about a little something that I want you guys to sort of take the helm on. This is the red zone. This is where things are getting crazy, things are getting serious. Mark Nestico wrote an article about why PPTQs are bad for Magic. So because I'm closely aligned with the invitational qualifiers that SCG does, I don't really want to dip the toe in this water. So what I would do is that we've all read the article and we all had a sort of a private conversation about it. But Aaron, kick us off here with telling me, what do you feel? Is this right or is this wrong? Or what is this article talking about?
Well, so Mark wrote this article, and I'm a big fan of Mark's, obviously, and he was basically listing reasons why he feels the PPTQs by themselves are not working. Mm-hmm. One of the things he suggested was having PTQs that we know and love, or some of us do, alongside the PPTQs. And some of the complaints were the fact that a lot of stores that can run a PPTQ, like just because you're qualified to, does not necessarily mean that you are cut out to do that, if that makes any sense. So there are a lot of negative experiences that people are having. There's also the fact that they don't seem to have the weight that they used to. So for people who don't have a lot of events in their area, you would kind of go all out for a PTQ. You would drive the 3 hours. You would possibly get a hotel room depending on how many rounds were there. But having to do that for a PPTQ just doesn't necessarily feel worth it, because if you win that one, you now have to get to your RPTQ, which may be even further than your PPTQ was. And that's taking away a lot of people's drive to even try. Also, something else that was brought up was the prize support and how that isn't very good, and the fact that there are so many PPTQs now where people are feeling burned out, or they're thinking, well, I can afford to miss this one because there's going to be another one next week, and how it just isn't necessarily, having the impact that I think people were going for. Personally, I enjoy the system because where I live in Milwaukee, we didn't really have any PTQs. Like, we really didn't have any TOs that were cut out to run them. Like, I can count on one hand the number of PTQs that I went to, and even then we had to drive at least an hour out for them. So the fact that I can take the bus, or I can even walk to my local game store and go to a PPTQ, is big for me. And I'm also not the type of player who, again, me not being very good at the game, if I'm going to play 8 or 9 rounds at something, I want it to be an open. Like, I want it to be something where, I don't have to win the whole thing in order to feel like I had fun or to feel like I did a good job. I can go to an SCG Open, be 6-3, and feel like I did something with my day. I don't feel like a total loser. Whereas with the PTQ system, it was the blue envelope or nothing. And some people really like that. But for me, at my skill set, I need that consolation prize. I need to walk away feeling like I did something with my time. And so that's why I enjoy a 5-round PPTQ, because I can play in that. I can feel like I don't exhaust myself. I can still feel like I'm playing sharp 5 rounds in. And so for a player like me, I really like the system. So I unfortunately can't relate, but I don't think he's wrong. Like, I think it's a valid opinion.
Ruben?
So I don't know exactly how to combat that, because clearly we're different kinds of players.
Yeah.
And whereas the old PTQ style didn't work for you, the old PTQ style was me. That was me. I wanted that. That was everything that I loved about Magic. Driving 4 hours from Columbus, Ohio to Indianapolis to play in the PTQs against like all the ringers from Chicago and Kentucky and all the other folks that came from Ohio in a 350 person knockdown drag out fight where only one person escapes the cage alive. Like, that's what I wanted. And I didn't win a lot of them. I won 2 in 10 years, I think.
That's still impressive. Like, I'm proud.
I never won a PTQ. I top 8
Dude,
many.
they're tough. They're not
really
easy.
hard.
They're real. They're not easy. But when you reach the mountaintop, you get to say you're the king of the hill for the day, and that's awesome. And the other thing about PTQs, the traditional PTQs that I miss, is also similar to the big pre-releases that I miss, which is I made all of my friends in Magic when I was like 14, 15, 16, all the folks that I grew up with playing Magic, I met at F&M, and those were like 10 people that were from my hometown, or PTQs, which was well over 100 people from all around the Midwest, let alone the country. Yeah. So I'm missing out And people who are growing up playing Magic are now missing out on establishing those relationships. And that's the biggest deal for me, is that the big PTQs, you went 2-2 and you dropped. And then you went off to the side and you cubed, or you found a team draft, or you just hung out and played some board game that somebody brought, or you went across the street to the restaurant and watched the football game that was on, and you established relationships, and you went in, you found people that you were willing to go on 12-hour car rides with to Grand Prix, and you found people that you could sleep on their floor and you could meet their parents, or you could lend cards to and borrow cards from. And I don't have that anymore, and that's sad. That's a part of my personality that doesn't exist in Magic anymore. I think that the middle ground that Mark references in his article, where you have PPTQs and PTQs living simultaneously next to each other, I wish that would work, because we had it for a season. We had the double working, and that worked pretty well, I think. Like, you could go to the big PTQ and try to get your one shot in your 10-round tournament, or you could grind up the RPTQ system, which also works. And I like the RPTQs. Here in Vegas, we get like 25 to 35 person events, and they're like 5 or 6 rounds, and you grind it out and you see who wins. But I personally feel better about myself going X and 2 in a PTQ, getting top 32 or top 16, than I do going X and 1 and losing in top 8 of a RPTQ. That's just me personally, though. And we're different kinds of players.
Oh, yeah.
And Magic is never going to get it perfect. They're not going to please everybody. God knows it's hard to please Magic players. But I think that there can be a middle ground, and I would love for them to explore that. Because my biggest problem with PTQs not existing anymore is I miss my friends. That's the biggest thing.
There was certainly a culture around PTQs that existed that I also grew up in, that I would travel to go to. That was a thing.
And it's so interesting to me that you described that, because that sounds horrible to me, And what I mean is, like, you
what,
mentioned,
having
like,
friends?
No. I play Dredge.
Nobody else.
It's about not understanding that quarter inch of diet soda. That you just got to get that maximum.
If I wanted to have friends, I wouldn't be playing Dredge. Come on. But no, but I mean, like, there definitely is the, going back to the different styles of player, there is that player that does like to tell sort of those, 5 miles in the snow kind of stories, where we drove 5 hours and we stayed in a slum, and God bless them. But to me, that lifestyle just does not sound appealing to me.
Oh, come on. There's been multiple times where people have slept in the bathtub of the hotel room that I am staying at for the event.
Evan,
multiple.
we're thinking of the same
multiple times.
Right?
That was an absolute hallmark of the culture when I was into Magic, and when I was in tournament Magic, just deep. That was absolutely
that was a that was a Kentucky PTQ where I stayed in the same hotel room as you and like 12 other people, and it was not a hotel room that could fit 4.
No, it was
I
not.
slept
Bodies everywhere.
In the closet. I slept in the closet because the lights were still on at 4 a.m, and I was just like, I just need it to be dark. So I go in this closet that, by the way, can't fit me. I just like close the door and I'm like huddled up like this. That's where I slept.
Oh my God, there's these great stories of just like, I remember the first time I met, I believe it was Lewis Laskin. And he, I originally called him 2-packs because he played until like 3 a.m. in this insane event that lasted forever, and he came back and he was like, no, 4-packs. He was like, dude, all they gave me was 4-packs. I played for 13 hours and they gave me 4-packs. And I'm just like, because the winner got like 2 boxes or something. It was like second place got like 4-packs.
I mean, I will say,
Magic players, you just play for keeps, man.
Yeah, man.
Whatever they give you for first prize, that's a badge of honor.
Yep. And then there's that kid who's staying up all night, like watching anime over there in the corner with his laptop. Like, this is a thing that happened multiple times.
I mean, I will say one thing I did agree on with that article is the wanting to see higher standards for the stores that are able to run this.
Yes,
from what I understand, there's there's not many, levels or ratings that a store can have. And from what I understand, a lot of these stores are already at, their highest rating. So they really can't do any better, for lack of a better word. But I do feel like just because the store can run an event doesn't mean that they should. And I would like to see maybe that rating system reviewed or maybe adjusted somehow, where and then that's something I'd like to see, because one of the things I talk about on my other show is the quality of stores. And I think if you are going to run an event like this, you should be able to show that you can, using metrics aside from you can host an F&M, because they're two very different beasts, and I'd like to see that revised somehow. I don't know how yet, but at least looked at again.
I 100% agree that just because you're allowed to run well, basically if you run one, then player feedback should affect whether or not you get to keep running them.
Yes.
I think that the variables in payouts, not knowing if you have like enough room, turning people away from a Magic tournament is the worst thing that can possibly happen, and that happens way too much in this RPTQ system. It happens occasionally with Grand Prix. It happened occasionally with PTQs, but when it happened with Grand Prix and PTQs, they didn't get to run tournaments anymore. And I don't know if that's happening with the PPTQs. So I assume it is, but I haven't heard stories about it because they're so much smaller that I'm probably just not. It's not getting written in the newsletter or whatever. Not that there's a newsletter, but you get my point. It's not big Twitter news, you know. And so I think that as long as the restrictions on who can run the RPTQs are stringent enough, they can keep running the PPTQs. That's fine, But I think that PPTQs are too, for my taste, PPTQs are too small. RPTQs are too tough. And regular PTQs were just right.
All right, Goldilocks. So let's talk about another game that deals with lots of crazy fantasy and such, which is the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Gather the Townsfolk, we're going to talk about a Reddit thread that we thought was interesting this week. One of the highest voted Reddit threads of the week is Yu-Gi-Oh! Defector. The person says, I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh! Defector, and I have to say that the grass really is greener, and he's having the time of his life. And he kind of goes through and points out all the problems that you have or that you don't have when you're playing Magic. Yu-Gi-Oh! To an extent has a lot of interactions, but most of them are spoon-fed to you, and as soon as somebody comes out with like the best combo in their standard format, that's all anyone wants to play. They ban cards insanely in ways that we would be like horribly shocked. I like his example. He's like, think of all the decks that are good in Modern right now. You picture them? All right, so in 3 months, Wizards is going to ban Snapcaster Mage, Summer Bloom, Azusa, Karn, Fetch Lands, Mox Opal, Inkmoth Nexus, and all the Eldrazi spells, and spells that burn for more than 3 damage at a time. Also alternate win conditions and permission spells. All right, good.
I'm not seeing the problem here.
You've witnessed 6 months of a Konami ban list. And so having almost 200 cards that are banned or limited or semi-limited or whatever that only grows, that to me is just horrifying. It's just like the worst I can imagine. They reprint cards that are, super expensive. The next year there'll be a mythic rare that's $1 bajillion, and then the next year they'll print it as a common in a box set. And that's a problem. And so with those huge swings in value of this card is worth $300, okay, now it's worth like maybe 10 or 5 or something. That's a big deal. And that also kind of highlighted how much respect that Wizards has really for the secondary market. They don't really come out and say it, and that's fine, because you can tell just in their moves that they reprint things for very specific reasons. They let cards have the growth, and they let them calm down a little bit. And at this point with Modern Masters, I think they really have the best tool they've ever had to say, this is what we want to support kind of moving forward, is that your collections are worth money. It's okay for them to be worth money, but if they start to get a little out of control, we're going to add some more cards to the pool so you guys don't go completely broke trying to build all of your decks. Aaron, how do you feel about, sort of the Yu-Gi-Oh! To Magic experience this guy was talking about?
Well, I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh! And as somebody who judges the Yu-Gi-Oh! Players at my local game store, I'm not a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. I have some shame. I'm very elitist about it. I will say 2 nice things though. One, it was really nice to see somebody come to Magic and have something nice to say about it. We sometimes get trapped in our negativity, and it turns into like this. This swirling vortex where one person says something they don't like, and then someone adds to it, and it just turns into this pile. So it was really nice to have somebody say nice things about Magic for a change. changed, especially on Reddit, you know?
Yeah.
The other thing I found really interesting is that he was we don't know what this person was, you know, they were basically saying things that a lot of Magic players say that they want. You know, we dealt with this with the banning restricted announcement where there were none, and people were like, oh, Amulet needs to go and Griselbrand needs to go. And then, you know, God forbid another deck comes out, ban that too, and ban that too. And this person is saying, no, you know, this is what happens when you ban capriciously. You know, you have these terrible metas. And the same thing goes with reprints. You know, every time something comes out, where is Damnation? Where is Serum versions? Where is this? Where's this? Again, this person is saying, I've been there. Like, you say you want all these things, but I've played a game that gave us all of these things, and it wasn't that great. And I appreciated that. You know, this was somebody who's, you know, I think that we, you know, again, we tend to feel like we're the only game out there because we do live in our little bubble and our little echo chamber. And sometimes it's really nice to see what other games have done and just to say it wasn't that great, like, just to give things a little more perspective. That's really what I took away from this.
It was, I mean, there's been multiple times, particularly over the years, like, you know, what happened when I found Magic and kind of got into Magic really deeply, and I started making the Magic show, and I started traveling, and I started doing all this stuff, and meeting the people who make the game. And I would say to them, like, oh my god, this interaction, oh my god, that deck. And then, you know, and they're just like, something has to be the best. And if something is the best, you don't want it, like, you know, you want things to change. You want them to be multiple bests or whatever. But, like, ultimately, if you have complete mathematical knowledge of what's going on in a format, you could ground out statistically what's the best deck. They can't just keep banning everything that's good, otherwise there won't be anything left, which is kind of what this guy's talking about. Ruben, sort of tell me, like, you know, I've never really played Yu-Gi-Oh! Either. I mean, I understand how it works. I understand it has very similar, sort of mechanics to Magic, and that's fine. And I've certainly kind of looked at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Culture from the outside, but, you know, it's kind of cool, and it is really nice to see a bit of positivity. We're like, wow, I found Magic, and I'm having a great time, and this is awesome.
Yeah, it's always nice to see that, you know, Magic is the best game, like, by far. It's just the best game. Yeah. And when we stop focusing on all the parts that aren't perfect and finally see something that Magic did perfectly, Magic created an economy. Like, they just created it out of thin air. It was amazing. A really good thing to check out. I'm sure you guys have heard of this, but Planet Money on NPR did an episode called The Curse of the Black Lotus, which described how Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering created an economy out of their card game, which had never been done before and has really not been done successfully since. Right. Yeah. And it requires a lot of balancing. You got to spin a lot of plates to make sure that everything doesn't come falling down. It's really difficult to do, and they managed to do it. And that's why Magic's been around for so long, and it's still successful. It's still the most successful, even though it's the oldest, which is not very common in gaming in general. Usually the first to do something successfully is not the most successful one. Right. And Magic has managed to just stay on top this whole time. It's been the most popular trading card game since its inception, except for like a 1.5 year span where Pokemon was the most popular trading card game. But then Pokemon fell away, and Magic is still never been more popular, and it's 20 years old. So I think it just speaks to how smart they were at the beginning and how much they're just sticking to it. And I really just gotta say kudos to everybody at Wizards of the Coast for managing to keep everything worth money. It's staggering, actually. If you really like sat down and looked at it from the outside, like I've obviously been in Magic since I was 12, so obviously I know that Magic cards are worth things. But you walk up to a person and say, "Hey, see this? This is worth $20,000," and they're like, "But that's just a picture of a flower with some words on it."
And you're like,
you go, yeah, that's a Black Lotus. It's in mint condition. And they're like, "Those words don't mean anything." And I'm like, "Yes, they do. They mean $20,000. And they're like, "You're a crazy person." That's not foreign to me, but that's foreign to most people.
Right. I mean,
go
ahead.
And Yu-Gi-Oh is a game that's pretty popular. It's like is it the second most popular trading card game? Cardboard trading card game right now? Yeah. So to see that the second best is just teetering like they are, at least this person says that they're sort of teetering. And it's been around for so long, and it has so many players. There was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Regionals when I lived in Roanoke that had like 700 people at it. It's a super popular game, but it's so far behind Magic.
Oh yeah,
it's just staggering.
Yeah, I mean, like it's. I mean, what the sort of what you were talking about. You know, the average person doesn't really get it. They don't really understand how we created this economy, and this economy has all these cards that are worth all this money. You know, to me, it's like when you go into a modern art exhibition, and you're like, "That's a broken chair," and they're like, "That's worth $10,000," and you're like, "No, it is not." Just because some dude decided to like nail it to a board or something doesn't mean that is all of a sudden priceless artwork. You know, it's hard for them to grok that this thing that they don't value in the slightest is worth so much. But there's those types of things exist in all sorts of cultures, and whether it's cars and car collecting, and whether it's motorcycles and motorcycle parts, and this thing off a 42 Harley is worth $5,000 or whatever, because because there's a whole culture built around those things that they don't really know it when they see it. I actually saw a lot of that happen when I would watch American Pickers from a few years ago, like back when they first came out, and it was like cool and it was new, and they were just some nerdy dudes who just dug through attics and barns to find stuff, and they would be like, yeah, American Pickers. They are the people they'll drive around and they'll find junkyards, they'll find people who are looking to sell just stuff, like old stuff. Like this guy's got movie posters from the most obscure random stuff you've never heard of in your life, but those movie posters to the people who are looking for them are worth like $100 each.
Right. So
but
these guys sold to antique dealers and to specialists, and it's the people who dig through stuff. Like I used to go to garage sales
it's like
to look for boxes of old Magic cards.
Exactly. You can go to flea markets and just be like, let me find the Magic dealer who has no idea what they have, and you're just pulling out this random stuff, and they got Serum Visions in their quarter box, and you're just like getting whatever you can because they don't know the value of it. That used to happen all the time. I would go through dollar rare boxes and find all sorts of cool stuff that people just weren't aware that had risen in value.
Go down to the flea market and they're like, "Hey, here's a box of Magic cards. Do you want to buy it?" And they're like, "Can I look at it?" And they're like, "Nope." And you're like, "Here's $10. Let's hope for the best."
Yeah,
I used to do that a good amount of the time.
It's like Storage Wars, I guess.
It's very much, except they didn't seed everything like Storage Wars did. But hey. Is what it is.
This is not a Storage Wars discussion.
It's not a Storage Wars discussion. We're not going to get into that. That's too controversial.
But anyway,
it's really cool.
I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh, so I can't speak to Yu-Gi-Oh. But this guy seems to just comes from Yu-Gi-Oh background, just learned Magic, and immediately sees that Magic is better. I mean, that's got to be a good sign.
I'm all
Magic.
for it. Yeah.
So let's talk about bad signs. Let's talk about splash damage. Splash damage is where things outside of Magic can somewhat relate to Magic or be interesting in terms of the Magic lens. And Aaron, I want you to explain what happened at the Hearthstone International Women's Invitational. Tell me what's going on with that.
I've tried really hard to keep my unique vernacular out of this show, but I feel like I can sum all of this up with girl. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there was a Hearthstone tournament called the International Women's Invitational, and it was an all-woman Hearthstone tournament. And the thing that's interesting about this was initially the tournament was not even going to allow women. It was going to be a men's-only tournament. Only after there was backlash online did the organizers say, okay, fine, we'll let women play, but if we're going to do it, they get to have their own tournament. And this is something that happens often where people feel like they sell it in such a way where they feel like they're doing you a favor, where they're like, oh, but you're getting your own tournament, and and then it ends up being a big mistake like this one was. So they had this tournament. They flew women from all over the world in, and all of the women that were playing were in white dresses, which is a little too much of a coincidence to be you have to kind of think there might be a dress code at play here. And there was a really big chair company. They make gaming chairs, and they sponsored the event, and they made it so that the guys had these really nice black elaborate cushions, blue piping, really fancy gaming chairs, and the women were given stools. And we're talking the uncomfortable Art Deco looking stools where it almost looks like an ice cream scoop.
They look like bar stools.
Yeah, but an ice cream scoop where it's not a flat surface, it's the scoop. And so that was a thing. And then they had to play on tables that were bar tables that had white tablecloths on them. And I don't mean nice tablecloths that were gently hanging off the sides. Oh no, the tablecloths went all the way down to the foot of the table, and then there was a rope or something wrapped around them in the middle. And like there were rainbows and flowers and curtains, and God bless, there are women who love that. I'm not saying that they don't, but you could tell that this was done because they thought women would love it. How like they make Nerf toys pink and all these things, and it was just like. It was just so stereotypical and cliche. And again, they were selling it as, we're doing it for you. Like, see, women, we're giving you this tournament. And, there's been a lot of talk about making Magic more inclusive for women, which I'm certainly a part of. And one of the things that we hear often is, well, why don't we have like a woman-only IQ or a woman-only GP? And I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but if you're going to do that, don't do this, because this was just a misfire on so many levels. And there are still people who look at this and don't see the problem, where they're like, oh, they're in really pretty white dresses, and it's like white for chastity and purity and virtue, and it's just bad. Like I just could not
subtext.
Right. And I just could not believe that this was happening. 150,000 people saw this, and it was just like,
wow.
It was mind-boggling.
Not just 150,000 people saw it, 150,000 at a time, because this was in China, so you got to put it through the lens of there's 1 billion people.
Yeah.
So there's like 4 times as many people, but this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And some of this is cultural. Like, I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm, and then somebody pointed this out to me, and it's not that we're trying to be culturally insensitive or anything, but a lot of this is deeply ingrained in how women are perceived and things like that. So I don't want to seem like I'm crossing that line, but just in general, there were just so many stereotypes and so many what they thought women would want to see, and they thought they were doing women a favor, and it was just bad. Like, this is just something we should not be aiming for. And
it was a nice way of showing you what not to do.
Yeah.
When someone's just like, well, how can it go wrong? And you're like, wait a second, I got a link for you.
Yeah,
and you just go like, you see?
It looks like the image on this article looks like a photoshopped image of an Onion article.
Yeah.
It was like some Chinese company hosts the Sunshine and Rainbows All Women's Invitational. Like that, it looks like a fake picture.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, this set is great, and I would love to play on it if they had more comfortable chairs. The set looks awesome.
They did put a lot of money in that set.
But if it were just a generic Hearthstone tournament, this set would be fine. But the fact that this is a women's only, it's like it's just not good. I feel like China kind of does this sometimes with their esports, where they just like go way overboard on something that they shouldn't do. I don't want to, stereotype, but, because American companies have certainly done missteps like this before. But, there are ways to do this. The World Series of Poker, for example, has a ladies event every year. And, they do it, but there's nothing different about it. They don't have pink tables, right? Yeah. So you just treat it like it's a normal tournament, except for, a couple things like, perhaps maybe only have female casters, for example. Or, maybe not all make them wear white dresses and don't force them to play at dining room tables.
Yeah.
Like there's things to not do. This is just, as Evan said, this is a great example of what not to do, and we can learn from it and move on. But it's also nice to see other games have these problems and not just Magic.
Yeah.
A little bit from a personal standpoint.
It does put it in perspective, even though we do have a long way to go, it does put it in perspective that, we can play on the Pro Tour and we can play on GPs, even though there aren't that many of us. But like I said, the fact that they weren't even going to allow them in the tournament in the first place, again, we get wrapped up in our own problems and we do create our own little spirals. And again, when you look at other games, you were talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic and how sometimes we don't realize how good we have it. I think you can look at other games and be like, maybe we're not so bad after all. Like, we at least allow, co-ed Grand Prix and co-ed Pro Tours. The fact that it took an internet backlash to even get this, I think that says something.
It certainly says something. So let's barrel down the pipe.
By the way, real quick, I posted a link to the article in the Twitch chat for the folks at home to take a look at.
Perfect. So and we'll have links. We have links in the archives for the YouTube description. We have links in the description of the audio only podcast, which you can find on iTunes now. Thanks, Apple.
We
took
it.
It took like a month and a half to list us, but we're in there.
Magic Mike XXL came out, so they didn't have us competing with them anymore because they were scared. You scared, Apple?
As they should be.
Yeah.
So as we barrel down the pike here to the finisher, to our last segment of the week. In the most recent Uncharted Realms that went up today, Catching Up, as it was called, Planeswalkers Jace and Liliana catch up on their Planeswalker things at their Planeswalker pub.
Did you say Planeswalker thing?
Oh yeah,
Things.
the Planeswalkers catch up at the Planeswalker
This is a
pub.
family show.
They talk about Planeswalker things, you know, just Planeswalker.
Okay. I
Just
took that
Planeswalker
totally.
things, hashtag, just Planeswalker things. So which two characters from Magic do you want to see meet in the next episode of Uncharted Realms? Ruben, why don't you kick us off?
Well, there are so many that I want to see, you know, get head to head and meet up and see what happens. But the one that I'm most excited for is the great and powerful Emrakul the Eons Torn will meet his match this fall in the battle for Zendikar when the largest Eldrazi faces off against his nemesis, the Kaiju from Pacific Rim. Watch that.
That's cray cray. Aaron?
You know, I think I'm going to keep it a little closer to home. You know, I would like to see our own Evan Irwin make his Magic the Gathering cardboard debut and the long-awaited face-off against his greatest weakness, Spectral Procession.
3 dudes? Seriously? Seriously. All right. So, and lastly here, Azusa, Lost but Seeking, will meet her soulmate, the adorable by getting totally lost in his big, beautiful blue eye.
That's a match made in heaven.
Is that how you say it?
Thubulthup.
All right.
It's a romantic
Oh,
evening.
it's so romantic.
Oh,
and
man.
that wraps up another edition of Magic Mike's. I want to thank Ruben Bressler. I want to thank Aaron Campbell. You guys were awesome. Going over here into the final slide. We thank you guys at home for watching. We hope you follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, do everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmikes, on Twitter at magicmikescast, on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmikes. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com or iTunes. Now iTunes, yay. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.